Welcome back to the Ghost Recaps. Today we will talk about a 2011 spy action film called Johnny English Reborn. Be ready for spoilers ahead. Up in the mountains of Tibet, and inside the Shaolin Temple, an English spy called Johnny English had come to train with the Shaolin monks, and in order to turn him almost invincible like this tough man, he starts his vigorous training session. He is made to walk barefoot on burning charcoal, and fight with the best of the monks. His head is then repeatedly hit against a punching bag in order for him to learn to overcome pain. But the most painful of them all, English is made to drag a rock across the training field, using only his balls, and eventually, he graduates to a boulder, hardening his soft spots and leaving him without any weaknesses. On the other side, back in the MI7 headquarters in London, an ex-CIA agent called Titus Fisher contacts MI7 from Hong Kong, claiming there is a plot to assassinate the Chinese premier on his visit to the continent by a terrorist organization called Vortex. Titus also claims that Vortex has infiltrated MI7, so he could only talk to one person who he trusts, Johnny English. So English is called into the Shaolin Master's office, and instructed to pack his things and head back to London, and when he touches down in London, he immediately goes to the MI7 headquarters, where he is redirected into Pamela Thornton's office, his new boss and the head of MI7. Although Johnny had worked and trained hard to improve himself, none of the other agents including Pamela, had any faith in him. This is after a catastrophic failure he caused in his last assignment in the country of Mozambique. MI7 had been hired to provide security during the inauguration of an incumbent president, a promising president who had promised to curb corruption out of the country, and rescue his people from the jaws of poverty, and English was the head of security, but he messed up so much that he turned the English intelligence service into a laughingstock of the world. As when everything seemed like it was going properly and according to plan, English was called to the side by an unknown woman, and when he went, she started undressing and seducing him. The president was then shot and killed, as English was busy enjoying himself with this lady inside the palace jacuzzi. This mistake caused him his reputation and no one wanted him back, so much so that Pamela does not hesitate to tell him this to his face. But as Pamela is busy talking, lecturing him about his past failures, his misfortune begins, as he knocks her cat down the building from the window ledge. Luckily, the cat survives and is brought back by Kate Sumner, a behavioral psychologist who had been hired to evaluate him, and make sure he is mentally okay. As all secret agents need some fancy toys, English goes to the MI7 testing facility, where he finds his former partner Simon Ambrose, and a scientist called Patch Quarterman, who is in a modified wheelchair after blowing off both of his legs. He is shown some of the new gadgets developed, but the best of them all is his new car, a Rolls-Royce Phantom with voice activation that recognizes only his voice. He is also introduced to his new partner called Agent Tucker, who is going to accompany him during this mission. So the two fly to Hong Kong, where they are to meet with Titus Fisher. They enter into a casino looking for a Chinese man with spectacles, who is to direct them to Fisher's safe house, completely unaware that their movements are being closely monitored, and immediately they spot the man. He is immediately stabbed in the back and killed. Thankfully, he had written down the address to Fisher's location, and when they go to the place, the old lady in the hotel had followed them, and this time, pretending to be a cleaner, it turns out, Fisher is actually a member of Vortex, and is holding one of 3 keys to a secret weapon in their possession. But as the two are talking, the old lady assembles a gun from a vacuum cleaner and shoots Fisher in the back, killing him. When English tries to go after her, another mercenary called Ling goes and takes the key from Fisher's dead body. English tries to run after him, but Ling easily parkour his way past him. The two quickly follow Ling to the roof trying to catch him, but he uses his parkour skills to jump over fences. But English does not stress himself, as he simply uses the gate which is not locked. Ling then runs and jumps across to another building, thinking there was no way he could make it across, but Johnny does not panic. He simply uses a nearby crane to go across, and eventually corners him demanding the key, but Ling distracts him and jumps over the edge, and starts climbing down the building using the wooden frames fitted on the outside. When he sees this, he simply uses an elevator to go down the tall building, and by the time Ling makes it down, English is already there, waiting for him. Ling runs and steals an inflatable boat before riding off, but English does not give up. He simply borrows a yacht, and goes after him. He then uses one of his gadgets to puncture a hole on the inflatable boat, forcing Ling to swim to the shores where English is waiting for him, and the two start fighting. Although Ling is much younger, English fighting skills are unparalleled as he easily knocks Ling to the ground, then hits him in his balls, completely finishing him, and takes the key from a defeated Ling who is crying in agony. After that successful mission, English and his partner Tucker go back to London to report to their superiors, but when Johnny opens the case which he was using to carry the key, he could not believe his eyes. He had somehow found a way to reaffirm his bad reputation. As the suitcase is completely empty, it turns out, one of the cabin crews in his flight back had been kidnapped, and replaced with a Vortex member, who then successfully swiped the suitcase with an empty one, and had taken the key to Slater, one of the men behind the plot to kill the Chinese premier. After completely failing his first mission, MI7 only had one more lead, a man by the name of Artem Karlenko, a former MI7 agent who was positioned in Moscow, but he retired and completely disappeared, until 5 years ago. He came back to London with a different name and extremely rich, who they believe is the second member of Vortex and has the second key, so English is sent to meet him in a golf tournament under the cover name Peter Adams, with only one instruction, to find out if Karlenko is in Vortex, and if he is, bring him in alive. So English takes his Rolls Royce and goes to the exclusive Oakwood Golf Club, where Karlenko arrives in the helicopter, but as the two are playing golf, the old assassin appears and immediately removes her gun. She then snipes and shoots Karlenko in the stomach and quickly run away. The two carry him into his helicopter trying to get him to the hospital, but the old woman takes out a machine gun and starts shooting at them. Luckily, none of them is hit, and since she had shot the navigation system, English is forced to fly low and follow the road trying to locate a hospital, and when they see an ambulance, they pack on top of it and are taken to a nearby hospital, but by the time they make it there, it was already too late. Karlenko only manages to give them his key, and tell them the third key is with an MI7 agent before passing away. After another successfully failed mission, and another very terrible and disparaging meeting with his superiors, English understands he needs some help, so he invites his former partner Simon to dinner, and starts sharing every detail of his case. But as the two are talking, his partner Tucker hacks into Karlenko's computer and finds something very important, a picture of Simon and Karlenko in Mozambique during the assassination, so he calls English to the washrooms to warn him about Simon, and when Simon follows English, Tucker immediately takes out his gun and orders him to surrender, but English does not buy this for a moment. In fact, he takes Tucker's gun and orders him to go home, then voluntarily hands over the second key to Simon. Simon tells English that according to his intel, Patch Quarterman is their traitor, and English totally believes him. It turns out, Tucker was actually right. Simon is the third member, and is holding the last key to Vortex's secret weapon, and thanks to English, they now have all the three keys. Simon had been offered a total of $500 million to assassinate the Chinese premier and he accepted. To tie loose ends, he calls Pamela and sets English up, by telling her that Johnny English is the third member, so when English goes to confront Patch Quarterman, the whole agency is waiting for him. They try to shoot him down, but he luckily manages to move out of the way. Unfortunately, as he is escaping, he is hit on the leg, so he takes Patch's modified wheelchair and rides off from the place, and when the agents get into their cars, English sets the wheelchair on sport mode and drive off at an alarming high speed through the narrow streets and traffic, managing to lose them. Unfortunately, as he was crossing the road, he could not believe his eyes. The entire police force is on one side waiting for him, but English could not allow himself to be arrested on fabricated charges. He puts his wheelchair on super sport mode and he starts flying. They try to block the road using a truck, but Johnny just drives under it, successfully escaping from them. Johnny then goes to the one person he could trust, to Kate Sumner's house, and immediately passes out, and when he wakes up, they discover something very important. Kate had acquired CCTV footage to the presidential palace in Mozambique during the assassination. She discovers that 15 minutes before the assassination, the bodyguard who killed him started shaking uncontrollably, then suddenly goes catatonic, as if someone was controlling him. Then after shooting the president, he suddenly fell down and died, and upon further investigations, they figure out Vortex's secret weapon is a mind-controlling drug. But as the two are talking, they hear a knock on her door from Simon, as the two are supposed to go to Switzerland together, where the meeting with the Chinese premier is to take place. When Johnny sees Simon from the back, he gets flashbacks of him in Mozambique, and after putting two and two together, he realizes that he is actually the third man in Vortex. He then sees a lady cleaning and immediately knows it is the old assassin, so English jumps into a trash disposer and manages to narrowly escape. He then goes to his partner Tucker, as he was the one who had figured it out first. Then the two break into MI7 testing facility, where English calls out for his Rolls Royce, which cuts open the gates using laser just to get to him, and they drive off heading to Switzerland. They arrive in the fortress of Le Bastion, with only one way up and one way down, then maneuver past several guards and sneak inside. Unfortunately, They accidentally trigger an alarm and their location is compromised, and as the guards starts converging towards their location, Tucker pretends he had just caught Johnny English trying to sneak in, and even pretends to shoot and kill him, and the two are taken up and into the fortress. On the other hand, Simon and Slater get to work. They roofie Pamela's drink and take it to her, as they want to mind control and use her to kill the Chinese premier during their meeting. Tucker and English starts taking out the guards, and Johnny jumps around in the body bag and by sheer luck, manages to find Pamela before she drinks the roofied drink. He tries to warn Pamela but she does not believe him. Slater and Simon run into the room but Johnny holds them at gunpoint. Then Johnny drinks the roofied drink, and he begins to shake uncontrollably as the drug starts to take control of him, and at this point, Simon comes clean to Pamela, confessing he is actually the third member that they were actually hunting, and that Johnny has 15 minutes of being controlled before the drug overpowers him and kills him. After a brief security clearance, Johnny takes Pamela's place in the meeting, awaiting to obey every command from Simon, who orders him to stand up and remove something from his pocket. It is a small gun inside a lipstick, and Johnny is ordered to shoot and kill Xiangping, the Chinese premier, but before he pulls the trigger and kill him, he remembers his training from his master, and Johnny starts fighting the mind-controlling drug by fighting himself, trying to stop himself from committing this heinous act, and after the 15 minutes are over, Johnny falls down and loses consciousness. Simon then escapes as he is sure his cover had been blown. The medics try to save him, but his heartbeat goes flat, but after one kiss from Kate, Johnny English is reborn. He immediately changes and jumps off the cliff going after Simon. He opens his parachute and lands perfectly on a snowmobile, then pulls a fast and furious move by jumping off another cliff and holding on to the underside of the cable car, and climbs into the car, and the two start fighting. Unfortunately, Johnny's hand gets stuck on a hanging strap above, and Simon sees his chance. He tries kicking English in his balls as hard as he could, but Johnny's balls are as hard as rocks. When he bends down to take a gun, English sees his chance for revenge. He kicks Simon in his balls and takes his gun, but English stumbles, and falls off the cable car and into the snow below. When Simon tries to shoot him, he uses a modified umbrella to shoot a missile, and blow up the cable car with Simon inside. Due to his heroic action, English is summoned by the Queen to be anointed as a knight, but when he looks up, it was the old assassin who was trying to kill him. He manages to take her weapon but she runs outside. English runs after her and jumps on an old woman wearing the same clothes, and leads her to his boss Pamela while beating her with a plate, but the actual assassin is brought through another door, revealing he is actually manhandling the Queen. Please like and subscribe for more.